Hello, internet adventurers, and welcome back to the channel. Meet Pip, he's a penguin who's had enough of the cold. And this is Wally, a wombat who can nap through an earthquake. For weeks, Pip has been dreaming of one thing: warmth. He'd seen pictures of a magical, sunny land called Vietnam, a place with endless beaches, delicious food, and zero snow. But how could a penguin and a wombat possibly get there? Well, after a series of increasingly ridiculous plans involving a catapult and a flock of seagulls, they stumbled upon a much better idea. They booked a flight. Wally wasn't thrilled about leaving his comfy burrow, but Pip's promise of unlimited exotic fruit smoothies was too good to resist. And so, with a suitcase full of fish-flavored snacks for Pip and a very large pillow for Wally, our unlikely duo set off on the adventure of a lifetime. First stop, Hanoi, the heart of northern Vietnam. Scene shifts to the bustling streets of Hanoi. Touching down in Hanoi was a sensory explosion. The city was a whirlwind of sights, sounds, and smells. Pip, used to the quiet emptiness of Antarctica, was completely overwhelmed. Motorbikes zipped past like metallic bees, horns honked a constant, chaotic symphony, and the aroma of street food was absolutely everywhere. Wally, on the other hand, was in his element. He loved the hustle and bustle. Their first mission, crossing the street. For Pip, it was the most terrifying thing he'd ever done. He saw a sea of bikes and froze. But Wally, with the confidence of a seasoned local, just grabbed Pip's flipper, looked both ways, and plunged into the traffic. They zigged, they zagged, and somehow, miraculously, made it to the other side. Pip's little heart was pounding, but he'd done it. This was just the beginning of their northern escapade. With the street crossing challenge conquered, it was time to tackle their next goal: food. A tiny plastic stool became Wally's throne, while Pip had to stand on a stack of books just to reach the table. They pointed at a steaming bowl of something wonderful: pho. The rich, aromatic broth was a revelation for Pip. He'd only ever eaten raw fish, so this complex, savory flavor blew his mind. He slurped the noodles so fast they slapped him in the face. Wally, a true connoisseur, took his time, savoring every bite. He even tried to teach Pip how to use chopsticks, which resulted in noodles flying everywhere. The vendor just laughed and handed Pip a spoon. Fed and happy, they explored the old quarter, getting lost in the labyrinth of ancient streets, each one dedicated to a different craft. They saw silks, lanterns, and shiny metalwork. It was like a real-life treasure hunt. Next, they journeyed to a place that looked like it was pulled straight from a fantasy novel: Ha Long Bay. Thousands of limestone karsts and isles jutted out of the emerald green water. They boarded a traditional junk boat, and Pip felt right at home on the water. Wally, however, was a bit wobbly on his sea legs. He spent the first hour clinging to the mast, looking a little green. But the sheer beauty of the bay quickly won him over. They kayaked through hidden lagoons, discovering secluded beaches and mysterious caves. Inside one cavern, their voices echoed in the vast, dark space, which Pip found hilarious. He spent a solid 5 minutes just quacking to hear the echo. Wally just rolled his eyes and started looking for a good spot for a nap on the kayak. That night, they slept on the boat, rocked to sleep by the gentle waves under a blanket of brilliant stars. And from the majestic north, they flew to the charming heart of Vietnam, the central coast. Their first stop was the ancient town of Hoi An. As dusk fell, the city transformed into a fairytale. Thousands of colorful silk lanterns lit up the narrow streets and reflected in the calm waters of the Thurbon River. It was pure magic. Pip was mesmerized, waddling around with his beak pointed to the sky, trying to count all the lights. Wally found a tailor shop and, being a wombat of discerning taste, decided he needed a custom-made dye, the traditional Vietnamese tunic. The tailor was a bit surprised by the request for a wombat-sized garment, but rose to the challenge. While Wally was getting measured, Pip discovered the joy of Vietnamese coffee. The strong, sweet brew had him zipping around the town at twice his normal speed, a caffeinated blur of black and white. The next day, still buzzing from the coffee, Pip and Wally signed up for a cooking class in the countryside just outside Hoi An. They rowed in a basket boat, a round boat woven from bamboo, through a dense grove of water coconut palms. Pip tried to paddle, but only managed to make the boat spin in circles, much to the amusement of their guide. Wally, meanwhile, was just enjoying the ride. At the class, they learned to make fresh spring rolls. Wally was surprisingly skilled, his short, sturdy paws perfect for carefully rolling the delicate rice paper. Pip's attempts were a disaster. His rolls were either too loose and fell apart, or too tight and exploded, sending shrimp and herbs flying. He eventually gave up and just started eating the ingredients directly. The chef declared Wally the winner, and Wally proudly wore his tiny chef's hat for the rest of the day. For the final leg of their journey, they flew south to the energetic, sprawling metropolis of Ho Chi Minh City, still affectionately called Saigon by many. The pace here was even faster than in Hanoi. The city was a modern jungle of skyscrapers, bustling markets, and historical landmarks. They visited the War Remnants Museum, a sobering and powerful experience that left them both in quiet reflection. To lighten the mood, they dove into the city's most famous market, Ben Thanh. It was a chaotic maze of stalls selling everything imaginable. Wally haggled like a pro for a bag of dried mangoes, while Pip was fascinated by the colorful pyramids of spices. He accidentally knocked over a small bag of chili powder and sneezed for 10 minutes straight, attracting a small crowd of onlookers. It was loud, it was crazy, and it was unforgettable. Their grand finale was a trip to the Mekong Delta, the Rice Bowl of Vietnam. They floated down the murky, winding canals on a long-tail boat, surrounded by lush greenery and fruit orchards. The air was thick and humid, a stark contrast to Pip's icy home. They visited a coconut candy factory, where Pip tried to help stir the sticky mixture and almost got his flipper stuck. They sampled exotic fruits they'd never seen before, like spiky rambutan and sweet, fragrant longan. Wally was in heaven. He could have spent the rest of his life just lying in a hammock, eating fresh fruit. Pip, ever the adventurer, even tried to catch a fish with his beak, just like in the old days, but the river fish were much quicker than Antarctic krill. He came up empty-beaked, but full of joy. As they sat at the airport, waiting for their flight home, they scrolled through the pictures on their camera. There they were, crossing a busy street in Hanoi, kayaking in Ha Long Bay, wearing silly hats in a cooking class, and covered in lantern light in Hoi An. Wally was wearing his custom-made dye over his t-shirt, looking incredibly proud. Pip, for the first time in his life, wasn't thinking about how cold he was. He was thinking about the warmth of the Vietnamese people, the incredible flavors, and the vibrant colors. He looked over at Wally, who was already starting to doze off, a contented smile on his furry face. They were an odd pair, a penguin and a wombat, but they had shared an adventure that neither of them would ever forget. Vietnam had been more than just a holiday. It had been a journey that filled their hearts. And so, Pip and Wally returned home, full of memories and maybe a few extra pounds from all the delicious food. Wally went straight back to his burrow for a well-deserved, month-long nap, and Pip, well, he brought a little bit of Vietnam back with him. He's been trying to recreate pho for his penguin friends, though cooking on an iceberg is proving to be a challenge. Their trip might be over, but their story is a reminder that adventure is out there, and sometimes the most incredible journeys are taken with the most unlikely of friends. Thank you so much for joining Pip and Wally on their Vietnamese vacation. If you enjoyed their story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss their next crazy adventure. Where should they go next? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay adventurous.